guys, let me start out tonight. We're going to ask a question. Ask you another question here tonight. Where do you go to? Where do you turn to when you want to recharge your batteries? When you want to seek refreshment? When you're looking for comfort? When you're looking for pleasure in your life? Where do you go to? Let's give you a minute to process that. When you're wanting to recharge your batteries, looking for refreshment, comfort, and pleasure, where do you turn to in your life? Let me ask you another question. Is God there? You know, if I'm completely honest with you guys, for me most of the time, honestly, the answer is no. Because I know something that's probably true of, I know that's true of me, that I'm assuming is probably going to be true to a lot of the other guys in this room, and that is, if I have a problem with, for example, my marriage, if I have a problem at work, lose my job, if I have something that happens where I need to seek guidance from God, I don't have any problem going to God in those types of situations. But you give me 2 hours of free time, and very rarely do I ever stop and say, God, what do you want to do for the next 2 hours? So what about you guys? And I think for me, why is that? Why is it when I find myself finally with a little bit of relaxation time that very rarely do I turn to God and say, God, what do you want to do with this? And if I'm completely honest, first of all, I could come up with 2 reasons. The first one is probably because I think a lot of times I don't even think about it. And brutal honesty, guys, second one, I don't want God to screw up my free time. I mean, I'm just being real with you. I mean, if I sit down and pray and I've got plans to go out and do something fun and God says, well, I want you to go over here, I'm just being honest with that. That's probably one of the big reasons why I don't do that. So what about you guys? Where are you at with that? Another thing I would say is, as we talk about this tonight, it's going to be really easy to go to, so what? We're talking about, really, when we look at our perspective of our lives, we're talking about a very small piece of the pie, right? We're talking about free time. How much free time do we really have, guys? I mean, when we put it up, if we put our time chart for the week up, and we put it up there, how much of that is actually spent with free time? Now, we're doing this all-in series, and a lot of us are thinking right now, look, Will, I'm struggling just to figure out how to include God into my marriage. I'm struggling just to figure out how to include God into my finances, my job, my relationships with the people around me. Really, that little sliver of time that you're talking about there, that's pretty much the only part that's going really smoothly in my life right now. And you want to talk about that tonight. Why is that? But this is key. This is important, guys, because if you get this, you'll stay with me. And you'll see the significance of it. And what I've learned is, whenever I allow God to come into that part of my life, that is the part of my life where I am, for the most part, de-stressed. That is the part of my life where I am least distracted. That is the part of my life where I'm most relaxed. And that is the part of the life, that very small sliver, where if I include God into it, He talks to me more clearly about my marriage. He talks to me more clearly about my job. He talks to me more clearly about those relationships that I'm seeking Him in. He speaks to me most clearly, I think, in those very small windows when I'm not distracted by everything else that's going on in the world. So in those moments, probably more than anywhere else, I should be seeking Him. But for whatever reason, in those moments, those are probably the fewest times when I actually stop and do seek Him. So what does that look like in my life? Well, before I was a Christ follower, it was real easy to see. Sex, drugs, alcohol, and women, right? I mean, it was real easy to see. I was filling a void. What's it look like now that I am a Christ follower? My recreation time, my time when I'm looking for refreshment. What does that look like? Well, it doesn't look nearly as sinful. A lot of times what it looks like is watching TV, surfing on Facebook, checking around different news channels to check out the headlines. They're not bad things, they're not sinful things, but I'm still not including God in on those. Another thing that I've noticed is about me too, and this is where my story may diverge a bit away from your all's stories. But in a twisted sort of way, I don't know if this is going to make sense to you, in a twisted sort of way, sometimes I blame God for me being so tired. You see, for me, where I'm at right now, because of the season of life that I'm in right now, I'm still practicing. I still have a job where I come into contact with a lot of people during the day. And then in the evenings, I've typically got something going on, Blue Ridge related or God related, which I love doing. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that, but it still does take kind of a physical toll on me. So when I get these moments of free time, I go to places where I don't want to talk to people. I want to be someplace where it's quiet and people can't get to me. And where the real problem is here, guys, I want to get to a place where I'm separated from God. Because in some ways, I think God's part of the reason I'm so tired right now. I need a God vacation. Okay? So what I start to do is I start to seek satisfaction from the world. What that means is I start to look for things to satisfy me, to refresh me, that are from creation, not creator. And what I also find is at these points, when I'm really, really tired and I'm really, really exhausted, these are my weakest points, right? These are the points where if there was ever a point that I needed to seek out God, this is it. I'm tired, I'm exhausted. And since I don't, a lot of times, these are the areas where I start to fall back into sinful habits. These are the areas where I just start wasting time trying to distract myself. And these are the areas where I start to look at something that I can just grab that's going to make me feel good for a minute. It might be a beer, it might be an ice cream cone. Doesn't matter. God's not involved in that. It's just something I'm looking for a quick fix to make me feel a little bit better. So what about you guys? Where do you go in your life when you're looking to recharge your batteries? Where do you go when you're looking for refreshment? Where do you go when you're looking to get your energy back up again and recharge? Where do you go with that? For you guys, do you go home? Do you watch TV? Sit on the couch? Do you play video games? Do you read a book? Do you have a hobby? Do you go for a run? Do you exercise? You see, for me, guys, all those things I just described there, they're not bad things. I want to be real clear about that. This is a theme that I want you guys to get tonight. This is not a night of legalism or a night where we walk away feeling guilty. That's not what this is about at all. This is just about finding ways when we are looking for recreation to include God into that. So we're not going to go to a bad place with this tonight. But for you guys, how do you include God into that? So, well, first of all, I want to do is I want to read a scripture. And this is Isaiah. And he's actually talking about a man who is trying to seek his satisfaction from the world. Okay? And this is what he writes. And it's really pretty. It's very poetic. But this is a man who's trying to seek his comfort, his satisfaction, his refreshment from the world. And this is what he writes. He feeds on ashes. I like that. I wonder how many times I've sat around on my couch just watching TV when God had something really beautiful planned for me and I've just been feeding on ashes. A deluded heart misleads him. He cannot save himself or say, is not this thing in my right hand a lie? He cannot save himself or say, is not this thing in my right hand a lie? I wonder how many times I've been holding that Xbox controller in my right hand thinking, is this thing, not this right thing in my hand, a lie that I'm trying to seek satisfaction from? But I just had no clue about it. So what God's been showing me about this is, Will, you became a Christ follower because you recognized that out in the world there was nothing there for you that was going to bring you ultimate satisfaction. Money wasn't going to do it. Power wasn't going to do it. Women wasn't going to do it. All the things that I sought out, that I tried to bring me satisfaction in my life was never enough. And I saw that very clearly, and I gave my life to Jesus Christ. But for whatever reason, in this area of my life, recreation, where I go to recharge my batteries, I find myself going right back to the world again. I find myself looking right back into the world again.